Hey, it's Janus, and I'm going to show you how I take a raw photo shot in the wilderness and turn it into a gallery photo using Adobe Lightroom. This photo is called Summit Sunrise, and I took this on the final ascent of our last morning of our 41-mile, 3-day, 2-night backpacking trip up to the top of Mount Whitney. So let's get started with this edit. I'm going to split this screen here. On the left, you'll see the raw image. On the right, you'll see the image that was edited using Adobe Lightroom. I'm going to reset this edit so that we can start this process together. Up on the right hand side you can see some of the different technical specifications of the photos. This histogram shows you the different exposure levels of the different qualities of the photo. This is the ISO. I was able to shoot at ISO 100 because I was shooting on a tripod. I had a 24 to 70 millimeter lens on and I shot at 24 to keep it wide open. I shot at f16 so that the focus is clear from the front to the back. And I had a half a second exposure because I was using a neutral density filter, which was helping to preserve some of these highlights up here. Let's get started with this edit. I'm not going to touch the tint or the temp. If you want to adjust those, you can. But we'll leave those right where they are. I'm not going to touch the exposure or the contrast. I took this shot with the right exposure, so I'm not worried about that end. Contrast we'll use later if we need to adjust it, but usually I try to stay away from those. I'm going to start with the highlights. I'm going to pull the highlights down and you can see it mutes the sky a little bit. I'm going to pull the shadows up and I'm going to pull the blacks up. The whites I'm not going to touch because again I shot it with the right exposure. Down here I'm going to pull clarity. You'll see that adds some dark spots there. It's also going to really define these ridges, the mountains, and then the edges of the lakes as well. Next, we're going to pull the dehaze, and I'm going to show you a couple of different things here. So first off, these are dust spots, and I'm going to show you how to remove those in a little bit. We're going to pull this dehaze as hard as we can, and you can see where these color bands start to form. That's known as a technical defect, and they really come out during printing. So we're going to pull this back to where I'm happy, which is around 30. And then we're going to move on to color. Now, vibrance and saturation you need to figure out for yourself and what works for you. I have a very specific style, so I'm going to set the vibrance to 70 and I'm going to set the saturation to 30. Now down below with the tone curve, you can think of this as kind of micro adjustments. So I'm going to pull these lights down a little bit and see how that looks. Maybe that was a little too much. And now I'm going to pull the highlights to kind of offset that. I'm going to pull the darks up a little bit, and then I'm going to pull the shadows down to offset that as well. And you can see that's a little bit more even. Then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to adjust this a little bit more and add a little bit of dark back in there. And you get a little bit more of that separation. Really shows you kind of the difference between the lakes, the mountains, and the sky. I'll come down this way. And if you wanted to change any hue, saturation, or luminance, this is where you would do it. The hue is going to allow you to adjust individual colors. We're not going to mess with that. If you wanted to increase saturation for a specific color, you could do that as well. So all the blues or the oranges. But again, you have to be careful with the color banding. If you want to illuminate a color, you can do that here. I'm happy with this photo, so we're just going to leave these alone. I'm also going to leave the color grading alone as well. Next, we're going to sharpen this image. So I'm going to go up here and we're going to pull this to 120, which is on the edge before it becomes really harsh. And we want that across the entire image, so we're going to pull the radius and the detail. That picks up a little bit of noise though, so we're going to go ahead and mask that. If you have really bad noise, you can come down here and pull luminance, detail, and contrast. But then you lose a little bit of detail in those ridges, so we're going to go ahead and pull that back. Then we'll come down here and we're going to remove chromatic aberration. Sometimes along hard lines you'll pull different colors, and that's known as chromatic aberration. There's nothing really good that comes out of it, so you might as well remove it every time. Next, we're going to enable the profile corrections. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to find the lens that I was shooting with, which was a 24 to 70. I have an f4, but an f2.8 is just fine. You can see what that does. It's going to fix the barrel distortion around the lens. It's also going to flatten the image. This is really important if you're using something like an ND filter as well. Now we're going to come back up to the top We're going to deal with these pesky little dust spots that are across the sky. Dust spots stem from dust on the lens or sensor and typically show up after shooting f5.6 or higher. So the way that I deal with these, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this dehaze to about 78. And you can see this. Up here there's a spot removal tool. The size is just the actual size of it, so you want that to be about the size of the dust spot. The feather is from the center to the edge, which is going to prevent having a really hard line there. And opacity, you just want it to be at 100 so that it removes it. We're going to put this on heal. We're going to click this. And that one I'm not really happy with, so I'm going to go ahead and redo that one. Make it a little bit bigger. And that one I'm happy with. Go over this way, find another one, click that, click this one. You can see I'm pretty happy with those. They're looking like they're blending in very well. Happy with those. There's one more. And then we'll pull this back down to 30. This is the finished image here. And if you are interested in seeing this photo in person, this will be in the main atrium of the Atlanta International Airport, thanks to the exhibit by the Atlanta Photography Group from now until January 25th, 2023. If you like this tutorial, please like and subscribe to my channel and be on the lookout for new tutorials coming soon.